It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
And this week we're putting on our dancing shoes for Venom 3, The Last Dance trailer that debuted this week.
Are these shoes that we lace up or are they slip-ons?
They are goo. They're Venom shoes. So
Goo shoes.
They're goo shoes. So yeah, so that way you don't slip because they got traction. You know, you don't want to fall down.
Oh.
And
It's like those Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball spray-on shoes.
Exactly. You're very safe with these, so you're gonna get those on. Pretty early on, we got some rumors about World War Hulk being in the cards at Marvel, Mike, and we've talked about this before, but we've got some pretty good stuff lined up for this rumor here. The X-Men reboot might get a horror director, and I'm going to just go ahead and drop it. They met with Jordan Peele, but that could also be an indicator of something bigger and more.
Yeah, Chris and I are feeling, I would say, very efficient today. I made it early to our recording session. I feel like I'm always 5 minutes late. There's this phenomenon that happens, Chris, where 15 minutes before we say we're going to hop on mic and start recording, that 15 minutes goes like 5 times faster than any other 15 minutes in my life. And I know there's no punishment, there's no there's no negative like indication.
Docking your pay every minute you're late.
There's no pay to be docked, but I swear those 15 minutes just like evaporate. I'm always like, I'm behind, but like I'm early. I feel like we got to recording here quickly, so let's see what this does to the show. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, and it's also earlier in the day than usual. I mean, just to be honest, I will say if anyone was watching live, I accidentally cut off our intro a little bit, so I'll have to edit that in for the audio version. But yeah, we're earlier in the day for you at least, 3 hours behind. But this is a good time to go ahead and tell people we will not be here next week. We are taking our summer vacation next week, so we will not have an episode next week. But we have 477 news episodes and 100 review episodes people can go listen to in the meantime. So.
Go listen to some old news. That'll really get you going. Sometimes it's kind of fun to check in and see how silly we were,
how wrong we were.
Future was going exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I don't think I could stand listening to us talk early 2020, like just before the pandemic changed the entertainment in Hollywood.
Oh yeah,
forever.
How
delightful we were coming off of Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, that I dare to even go back because we started around when the first Ant-Man and Age of Ultron came out. I would hate to see like what news were we getting then, right? Like how much has that changed? But yeah. Anyway, a long ways to say. We'll be off next week. So if you guys have any summer plans or whatever, enjoy them. Take the extra hour. We'll give you back your hour, as they say in the corporate world, Mike.
Yeah, this is a Zoom meeting. But make sure you come back in 2 weeks because Chris will be able to give you a recap of his trip to come out and visit me in Los Angeles. We're going to go to Disneyland, and he's going to be able to see Avengers Campus for the first time.
I'm very excited about this, and it's really ironic because we only record when we're not together. We even though we'll be together in the most, like, I guess the ideal podcast situation, we're not going to record because we're going to be everywhere else. So
honestly, I don't even know how we would set up a podcast with somebody in the room with me because I'm like, do I put the microphone like in the middle of the two of us? Do we both have microphones?
Yeah,
what's the deal here?
I think we both get a microphone, just put a cardboard box like shield in between us, and we just can't look at each other the whole time.
We don't even have the video chat on when we do these. It's just as it's intended. You're listening to us disembodied from a face, and I talk to Chris disembodied with our faces.
This was
all good.
Literally, the idea was, and I think you would agree, Mike. We're just going to record our phone call with each other and see how that goes, and that's what this podcast has become. Essentially, if you heard us talking on the phone in the middle of the day about this stuff.
This is the total tangent. We're already off the rails. but it just reminded me of like two pet peeves that I hate with podcasts. The first one is a podcast that will almost entirely have their guest or their co-host on just a really crappy Skype recording. Like that drives me crazy. Like we have technology now is much better than it was just even 5 years ago with audio recording. Now just anybody walks into like any electronic store, buy any device, like any electronic device, probably like your air fryer has a better microphone and audio recording than like a 10-year-old computer, and then just have them locally record their audio on their side. It drives me crazy. I get it sometimes. Like if you're listening to like a nonfiction, like journalistic type of thing, and like the reporter is like literally dialing in and it's for a segment or something, that's totally okay. It actually adds a little bit of like color, you know, to the audio of like, oh, this person's like reporting in live from the field or whatever. But that drives me crazy. So I'm glad that we don't do that. I think we've had to resorted to it like maybe once or twice when something technically has gone wrong.
We have several situations in place for backups now, thankfully, so we don't have that issue. But early on, I think maybe once or twice we had to resort to real roughness for it.
But number two, and this one is a somewhat new pet peeve I don't come across often. But if you're a podcast that's lucky enough that have been out there for a while, sometimes they want to flash back, you know, to memories in their podcast archives and react to them, talk about them. But it's an audio medium. So if you just take that audio and start playing it and then start talking over it, I have no idea what's from the past. I have no idea what's from now. And it just sounds like everyone's talking over each other. So if there happens to be podcast producers listening to this podcast, just use some sort of filter. Like, you know, when like you're watching a TV show and they do like a flashback or a dream sequence and they just slap a sepia tone on there or something like that. Like just put like a distortion on top of like your flashback audio. Like it could sound like a little old timey, or maybe make it sound a little flat or muted, or do something to it so I know what I'm listening to.
I think you have to do it kind of like where like kind of what they do on like a movie interviews and stuff, like where they show old clips and they react to it, but like okay, we're gonna play the old clip, boom, and they can talk over it, but they separate the audio where the reaction is played right after the clip instead, right? That way, like you should react to it rather than talk at the, like you said, at the same time, right? Because that maybe works on video mediums, but not audio. And I don't even think, I think adding an extra layer of static to that, like you mentioned, would just drive you even more crazy hearing three different things come at you at the same time. So I
promise to never do that to you, loyal listeners.
Yes. We try our hardest. We try to put out at least the best quality of things we can here, despite, you know, just literally just sitting down and winging it on a Sunday, what it feels like sometimes. But let's get into what you've been doing. You've been working out, and while you've been working out, you catch up on movies that we essentially have revisited a lot of movies here. You've got one new one that just came out this week, but you revisited a bunch of movies here. So and so did I. So let's jump into what you did. You've been talking about these.
I've opened the door back into Phase 4 of Marvel. Wrapped up Shang-Chi and rewatched Multiverse of Madness, and both of these movies were either just as good or better than I remember them being. So I had only ever watched these in theaters. I never rewatched them. So the only lingering memory I had of Shang-Chi, surprisingly, was just I liked Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. And that was like the only memory I had from the movie. I was like, well, do I have any other opinions on this film? So I'm glad I went back and rewatched it. And I was surprised that the fight choreography is great. I love it. The stunts, the fight scene on the bus at the beginning, the kind of scaffolding outside of his sister's fight club on that building, that was really, really cool. But I do remember I had this opinion when I watched it the first time and we did the spoiler cast of the third act is surprisingly the least interesting part of the movie, and that's pretty surprising if you were to tell somebody it has like two dueling dragons in a mystical world. It's just not, it just wasn't as exciting. I felt like I didn't have any sort of, I don't know, just care for these people in this alternate world. Like, I'm just not grounded in their village. I don't really get to see them live their life.
it clashes with the, I guess, the grounded realness of the fight scenes in the first half, as you mentioned, right? Like, it feels very much like these are real fights are happening. They're visceral. They're choreographed in a real life way, right? And then you get into a mystical world that kind of flips a little bit. Essentially, the world would literally flip upside down, if you will, to be more mystical and not have that groundedness that was the beginning.
It just seems so unreal and unrealistic, which I know seems silly within this kind of like fantasy realm. That it was like, oh, am I watching like a dream? But overall, I do remember one other thing that I liked the first time I watched it, and it was just the physicality of the 10 rings themselves, like the weapon. It's just very interesting. It's what makes Spider-Man really, really cool. Like, he's a superhero with this unique power set, and he gets to do visually compelling things on screen, and I feel like the rings lend to that as well. So I'm happy that a lot of that still held up. So all that being said, looking forward to the next time we get to see Shang on screen. I think it's going to be great. And then the Multiverse of Madness, it was weird. We watched the movie in theaters, we hopped on mic, and we reviewed it, and I remember loving it. And then after the movie came out, I started hearing a lot of these like sour reactions to the film of like things that they didn't like about it. And then I feel like it started to poison me a little bit. And I was like, oh, was the movie as good as I thought it was? Am I just going in with some sort of rose-tinted spectacle? And then I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, no, this movie's great. Yeah. I mean, Sam Raimi gives a visually striking difference to this movie that a lot of other Marvel films don't have. They just don't have that style. I love seeing zombie Doctor Strange again. That guy is like so cool. All of the characters I feel like are properly motivated, and the threats seem real to me. And the story is so much more tragic than I remember it being for the Scarlet Witch. Like, she really goes through it in this movie, and it was helpful for me to remember, like, oh, she's going so crazy because she starts to delve so deep into the Darkhold, and that's kind of like the biggest contrast, right? You leave on a hopeful note after the end of WandaVision, and then we see her again in Doctor Strange, and she's like gone crazy. So I don't know if an additional scene or something could have helped, or maybe this would have bogged the movie down. But you never really get to see her delve into madness.
The asterisk there is that they were supposed to release in tandem, and I think they said they reshot the ending or redid the ending of WandaVision because they didn't know when Doctor Strange was going to come out because of the the delays they had on it. With the pandemic. So I think there was something there, but with that time frame in between of it going from like, hey, it was supposed to be like a month to, what was it, like a year and a half maybe? It probably needed that a little bit, that little lift to get there. But
yeah. I mean, the only thing I think I don't like about this movie is this is just a display of some of the most obvious wigs I've ever seen in a movie before. I guess I just didn't notice them as much the first time around, but Doctor Strange is wigging it up. Rachel McAdams is wigging it up. The Scarlet Witch is wigging it up. Everybody's got wigs at some point in time in this movie, and they are painfully obvious, which it was kind of funny more often than not, but it was distracting to say the least. And then I don't know anatomically what a third eyeball is supposed to look like on somebody's forehead, but we do get to see that a couple of times in this movie, and I'm like, I don't know if I would do anything differently, but this just doesn't seem right to me. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you need to add a third eyebrow up there or if something needs to be added or taken away, but the third eyeball is distracting to me, and it just doesn't look.
It's flat. Well, it looks flat. It should be like recessed, right? Like, it looks like they essentially cloned his eyes together and put it up there in like compositing. But it looks flat on every Strange, right? Like, it should be an eyeball has like a depth to it, and like the nose bridge makes it like the shadow. But there isn't anything on your forehead to give it a shadow, and it just looks like, oh, it should be there. I always think, I don't think there's any way to make a third eye look good, because I always think back to Dragon Ball with Tien having his third eye. I'm like, boy, that doesn't look good either on him, and he's a cartoon character. So I don't think there's any way to make that look good at the end of the day either.
But to sneak in one final thing before we move on to what you did, Chris, this week, we checked out Hitman on Netflix this weekend. My wife and I had to tell her, I was like, you don't know who Glenn Powell is because we haven't watched the sequel to Top Gun. But he's all of a sudden Hollywood's it guy. So we're going to have to watch Hitman because he's probably going to be in like a Marvel movie or a DC movie at some point in time. I mean, technically he was like an extra, like a featured extra in The Dark Knight Rises. I just saw that on TikTok over the weekend. But all of a sudden he's like super famous now. So I was like, we got to familiarize ourselves with this guy. And he's in a movie on Hitman.
He was in that one movie with
Sydney Sweeney.
Sweeney.
Anyone but you.
Anyone but you as well. Yeah, he's in Twisters in a month. So
yeah, that's coming out. Yeah, so he's about to be the guy, right? So you got to catch him where he's at before he takes off. But Hitman was really, really good. It's a movie that you think you know where it's gonna go. You feel like they set up the premise. You can kind of see the writing on the wall, but then they do a really good job of doing the unexpected. I wouldn't say there's necessarily twists in this movie. I'm not trying to set you up going like, oh, wow, there's going to be all of these like layers in there, but they just go in a different direction, and it was just refreshing. Mm-hmm. It's billed as a comedy. There's a little bit of romance in there, not a whole lot. There's not enough here to call it a romantic comedy, I don't think, at least. But it was great. We really, really liked it. I think it'll be a hit. I think people are really liking this one.
And then Mike and I beforehand, he was you said it was written and co-written by Glenn Powell, but also co-written and directed by Richard Linklater, who has done movies such as School of Rock and what was the other one I said? Dazed and Confused. And then I told him about the Before trilogy. If anyone hasn't caught that, I would recommend looking up the Before trilogy as well. It started in 95 with Before, I think, Sunrise, and it's got Ethan Hawke, and I forget the actress's name, but they did one in the 90s, one in the 2000s, one in the, I think, 2013, and they're the same characters, the same actors, like evolving actually like in real time kind of thing. But it's great, because I know, and this isn't spoiler, I saw this on the poster, Mike, Hitman is, Glenn Powell plays multiple characters, correct? That's what I get from the poster. Mm-hmm. So is this like a more of a sci-fi movie, you would say? An action movie?
No, not. It's this is actually very realistic. Okay. I don't know 100% how much this sticks to it, but apparently it's loosely based on a true story, and the movie kind of postulates to the audience that hitmen are totally a Hollywood invention. Mm-hmm. And the idea that you could just go out there in the real world and hire somebody to kill somebody for you is actually totally fictitious. But since they have been so preeminent in our culture, we just assume that they're real. So it's just kind of that. I don't want to
that's fine.
Give too much away, but I thought that was kind of interesting because, like, well, that's true. I mean, I don't think 99% of the things I've ever heard about hitmen have been from the entertainment industry. I don't even know if I've ever read like a news article about a hitman per se. You've definitely seen assassinations, but it's always been like governmental or terroristic.
There's always those news articles like the husband killed someone, like quote unquote a hitman to off his wife, or like vice versa. But it's never like the hitman of the movies, right? It's like some guy 3 towns over who will do anything for money, kind of thing. So, but I didn't know if it was sci-fi. It looked sci-fi from the poster, and I couldn't tell, so I figured I'd just gauge that from you.
Yeah, go check it out. It's good. I'd recommend it.
Okay. That's great, because the other Netflix option is Atlas, the Simu movie, so I was like, no, maybe he'd watch that one since he got off Shang-Chi. Topped the charts, but it wasn't good.
He could be making strategical moves, because you brought up Sydney Sweeney just earlier with that movie Anyone But You. I think if I remember right, the reason that movie got made, along with her Barbarella movie that's coming out soonish, the reasons that those even got made was she agreed to be in Madam Web.
Yep.
for Sony, and that's the story out there in Hollywood right now, that's the bargain that she made, that she would be in this obviously bad movie in order to get these other projects greenlit. And I just think that's like super smart.
And I would say one of the things that meaning people don't know about Sydney Sweeney, she's a producer. She has a production company that she actually owns. So those are her movies that she made, like through her production company, through the distribution agreement through Sony. So yes, she's being very smart about this stuff. And she's like, and literally, I think in the interview, she's like, I don't care how bad it is. I got what I wanted out of it, right, at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And that is awesome for that. Well, I'm going to flip the script here. Mike went back, 5 years. I went back 30 years, Mike. And I have been revisiting, as I mentioned last week, stuff on our Tube TV. And I put it on random, and the first movie that popped up on random this week was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original movie, Mike. And we always talk about the Turtles here. You've got a love for the Turtles. This movie holds a lot of, I guess, I wouldn't say love in people's hearts. I mean, people might love it, but it's got a lot of memories because of those actual, like, physical bodysuits they wore in these movies, right? And revisiting this, it has got some of the worst dialogue. It is a very late 80s dialogue, but it is so, I guess, of the comic books. Like, I'm like, I could see every one of these scenes being drawn in a Turtles comic book throughout it. I do think it's fun. It was a great time to visit. We didn't have the ninja rap in this one, but we got, Shredder and, Splinter obviously is a big rat, and they have like no, it's not a seance, but they commune with them through the ninja spirits. But one of the things I think that is just, very distracting about this movie sometimes is when you realize that you can see the people under the suit, like in their mouths, like they were just kind of painted. And like, oh, I didn't notice this as a child. Is that like you mentioned wigs earlier? I'm like, is that something you watch just because you're like enthralled with the story and seeing turtles come to life? Or is it because, now I'm like, oh, it's not on a better screen. I'm like, oh, I'm just noticing these things now. Is that like, I don't know. So did you ever remember noticing the people in the turtle mouths? Like whenever they were?
No, I mean, I was a child.
Yeah.
Everything that I saw in the movies was wonderful.
It was a documentary.
I never questioned any of it. It was, for all I know, it was real. One thing I just learned recently is at least the original one that you're talking about here. I don't know about the sequels, but the original one for the longest time was one of the most successful independent films. I didn't realize, I don't know exactly what qualifies it as an independent film necessarily, but that's what it was. I guess somebody went out there, raised money on their own, filmed and shot this, and then went out to Hollywood and said, hey, who wants to distribute this movie? Well, I thought that was pretty wild because usually IP-based movies, that's not how it goes now.
Yeah. I do think, the fact that they were able to bring the turtles into these suits, and like, I didn't for once think, I'm like, oh man, this isn't, I don't know, it's not like the Michael Bay ones where it's like CGI. There's something about just having the tactile suits there that was really cool. And thankfully, I mean, they learned their lesson from Howard the Duck, right? Whenever that was just a big robot suit, and these actually have the people in them with obviously some animatronics. But I had a good time revisiting that. It was just, it's not as much fun to watch, but I mean, it still holds up. Just to have that nostalgia there. In a movie I never grew up with, Mike, and a lot of people have. My wife was quoting this as it was going on, and I don't know much about it. Is actually The Princess Bride, and I don't know how much exposure you had to this as a child either. Just kind of gauging.
I had absolutely no exposure to this as a child, and I watched it for the first time maybe like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, like I've seen clips, and I think I might have watched it at one point, but like, I'm more familiar with like the scenes from the movie rather than the actual like whole part of the movie. But one of the things that made me think, this movie made me think about is Cary Elwes, the main actor, right, in The Princess Bride. He is literally a man who can play a straight-faced man or like a comedian in any role he wants to do, Mike. And I started going through the roles because I was like, oh, I'm going to quote Robin Hood Men in Tights because I know him from that role, right? Where he's essentially playing another, like, early 90s swashbuckler, if you will, the Robin Hood of that. And then I'm like, well, he was also like one of the dudes in the first Saw movie, like the guy who had to like cut his foot off or whatever. I'm like, oh, he can do horror films. He's also, kind of thinking, he was the king in the Rebel Moon movies. I'm like, okay, that's good for you, still getting work. Yeah, but at the same then on the flip side, in the news Mission Impossible, he's like, I think the president or like the head of the FBI or somebody like that, like, and I'm like, he can literally go all across the spectrum in any of his roles he wants to be in, and I'm like, that guy is a great actor. I mean, when will we get him in a superhero movie? That's the question. What are we gonna get him in? Unless he's already been in one, and then I feel stupid, but I don't think he's been in any offhand. And then obviously on the opposite side, the actual princess in that movie is Robin Wright, who went on to play in TP Wonder Woman's aunt in the Wonder Woman films with Gal Gadot. So very, very good. I actually named my cat after her character. So and then the other movie I watched, Mike, is Good Burger, the original Good Burger, the Nickelodeon film. And boy, do movies of the late 90s, early 2000s have a flavor, if you will. And this movie, it made me think of you, if I'm going to be completely honest, because the whole crux of this movie is there is a restaurant called the Good Burger that's barely hanging on, but they have a really dedicated worker played by Kel Mitchell, and he's just an absolute doofus. But he lives to be at the Good Burger thing. And then there's I forget. It's not called like the Omega Burger, but it's like another burger joint opening across the street, and they're like,
"Is it Mondo Burger?"
Mondo Burger, yeah. And it's like we've got bigger burgers and stuff like that, and then they're all like, we're never gonna get business, we're gonna go get closed. And then Kel's character, he makes a special sauce, Mike, literally the special sauce he makes, and that's what makes people want to come back to Good Burger, and saves the day at the end of the day because he's able to have his special sauce on these burgers that make them taste better.
So you saying this reminds me, or you reminded of me because of there's a special sauce.
There's a special, you love
sauces.
Special sauces, yeah. but like at the same time, I'm like, if there was ever like, we need like some sort of special sauce to make this movie popular. It is literally a special sauce. It's not even like figuratively. It's literally. I'm like, this is like so on the nose of special sauce. It's wild.
Now you got to go watch the sequel. You got to watch the sequel and let me know if it's worth.
I'm not excited. I have no interest in watching the sequel. I had no interest in watching the first one. The shuffle was against me for Good Burger. It was this or for a few fistful dollars more or whatever it's called, a Clint Eastwood movie. I'm like, I'm good. I'm not watching a Clint Eastwood movie today. We don't need a Western in the house for this. But I'm excited to see what the shuffle will take me through on the next ones. I think. The last week, did I tell you we watched The Mummy? I don't know if we had watched The Mummy last week. Yeah,
I think you mentioned that.
So my wife was going down that road, and so it was it's fun to see, her exposure to these older movies that she's watched and I haven't watched. But we're here for news. Let's jump into the news, Mike. We've been talking about Captain America: Brave New World. The newest report is from someone, we don't actually have a photo, but someone on set, that Benedict Wong, who plays Wong, was on set in Atlanta filming. And the reason I was like, why would he be in Captain America: Brave New World? He has that connection to the Abomination, right? And like this movie is essentially a spiritual sequel to the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk movie. So he could be doing something with the Abomination in these scenes.
I just watched Wong in 2 movies.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi. Is Wong in every Phase 4
No.
movie, or I happen to pick the 2 that he's in?
You have to pick the 2 he's in, but he's been in some. Was he in a TV show? I think he wasn't in.
He was.
Go ahead.
He was in She-Hulk.
Yeah. Was not the Marvels.
Was he in one other? I feel like he was in another Disney Plus show, but maybe I'm imagining that.
Yeah.
No, he's in something. He's in something else because, or maybe that's like the end credit scene of the end of She-Hulk where he like hangs out on a couch with what's her face.
Yeah. He's in No Way Home. No Way Home's the other one we're thinking of.
Okay.
So that's kind of, I just pulled up his wiki page here. Yeah, it went from Spider-Man No Way Home to Doctor Strange to She-Hulk. So yeah. Nothing else.
He's the Nick Fury of Phase 4, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's pretty mystical. It seems like most of the stuff that he is connected to seems to be pretty superpowered. But yeah, you're right. I just watched him in Shang-Chi.
with the
hanging out with
Abomination.
the Abomination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could be that. Obviously he post Endgame. We've not really had a big like, hey, everybody knows each other because we all fought in the big battle kind of thing yet. So could just be, you know, maybe he knows Sam Wilson better at that point. I don't know, but he's been on set, and obviously I think he's going to be Benedict Wong, a character to kind of start pulling this stuff together as we get towards all the other things.
I mean, there is always the disclaimer that Marvel seems to shoot almost everything in Atlanta. So if anyone's down there for any reason, you know, they might just show up on set just to say hey. But probably not. I'm sure he's a busy man that doesn't need to be there if he doesn't need to
Well,
be
they
there.
also filmed the other Marvel stuff in the UK, which is where he's from. So big trip for that. I assume we're going to see a photo probably after we get done recording of him in this actual outfit and go down that road. But they did not have one at that time. Now, the people on set, though, were able to get some of those some videos of Mr. Giancarlo Esposito filming on set. Looks like he's has a shootout on a highway scene here, and it's a 2.5 minute clip. You don't have to watch it, but like, you know, he's obviously they're filming. It's a scene out, and he kicks a door closed. I watched it earlier this week. You know, the other thing I was looking at is he, you know, in the comic books there was a character called Jake Fury, which is Nick Fury's brother. Now, the more I thought about it, the more I looked, I'm like, this guy could literally be Nick Fury's brother in this. Like, same age range, same, like, kind of what he was wearing last week, what we saw seems to be on par with a Fury brother kind of vibe.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, since we got a peek into Fury's personal life in Secret Invasion, even though it seems like that show is going to be swept under the rug, possibly. Yeah. I mean, we got to see the inside of his house. I wonder if there were any family pictures that might have hinted that he had more than just an alien wife.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that movie or that TV series thought anything more than, hey, can we get to the end credits today? So I don't think there's any setups in that. But, you know, knowing, you know, they have been pulling, there's a comic book series called Secret Warriors, which is one of my all-time favorite comic book series. It's very like a 30 issue thing, but Jake Fury was like an undercover villain for a while in that. So like, you know, I know him a little bit from that, but I don't know, he could literally be anybody, and we're probably going to be underwhelmed when it comes out to be someone who doesn't really matter at the end of the day, right? Big name for something. But if it is Jake Fury and he's going to be in TV series, as he said afterwards, that would make sense to have another Fury, like I guess on Earth, doing the dirty work that Nick Fury's not doing because he's out in space at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is kind of nice though, just to see the news start to spin up again, right? I feel like it's been a while since we've had these types of conversations on the podcast of, oh, there's set photos to talk about. There's a mysterious new actor out there filming scenes. You know, for so many years, a lot of this stuff was paused. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have it back.
Yeah, it was paused by the pandemic, then the actor strike, then the writer strike. It was a writer strike, right? Yeah. So yeah, everything is seems to be made up, and this is again a result of the redo of this entire movie. And the other thing is, during this on set, Sam Wilson, or I guess Anthony Mackie, is wearing his suit from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, and so we know we've seen the blue one that he's going to probably get by the end of the movie, but it looks like it will be a journey to that blue one, Mike, rather than just he starts off in the new one from the get-go.
Yeah, that's usually how these movies work.
Yeah.
There's always a suit up scene, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, you know, again, since we've known this movie has been done, quote unquote, done for a long time, and they're reshooting everything. I wonder if they're trying to maybe not retcon or maybe connect it more to some of that other stuff to say, hey, look, we have to acknowledge it along the way, bring it back to the world. So it's interesting to see. It's a black and white photo, but that white is very, very contrasty against the rest, so it looks good. Moving into World War Hulk, we talked about this a little bit at the top of the show. Is that a movie for World War Hulk, not a series, is being set up for a future project, and we've said this before, you know. So we're kind of blue in the face here, but the idea is that Bruce Banner has been afraid of the government's getting his blood, as we saw kind of in She-Hulk, and creating their own super soldiers. So we're going to see, after Captain America Brave New World, the leader, the potential Red Hulk we've seen from the toys, the government's fighting over the celestial body that has been rumored in that movie. The also Vibranium, was it France trying to get Vibranium in Wakanda, the second Black Panther movie. So it looks like this is going to be a part where like the other countries are starting to dive into this a little bit. And it could be, the rumor is that it's a breaking point for Bruce Banner and returns of instead of a Professor Hulk, we're going to get that Savage Hulk, which is like, he has to come out to be like, to beat the other ones, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like there's some interesting pathos you could tell with a movie like this, right? Because the whole arc of the MCU, or at least the way it started, was when we put on Iron Man 1, we're ostensibly watching just our very own world. You know, our real grounded world start to change as these superheroes start to come out of the woodwork, and we start to learn more and more and more. You know, if you're just a normal, like, bad guy in the world, right, you're watching the TV and the news just like everybody else. And now all of a sudden the Hulk went from like a random green guy that you saw in like one brief news clip to
broke Harlem,
yeah, to all of a sudden being like a celebrity that you can just go up to in a diner, you know, and take pictures with. So there's some interesting things that you could do there, where his popularity, you know, him just trying to be normal is actually very dangerous because he's now a target all the time. So yeah, I wonder if they could play around with that at all, because he has come a long way. Like, he's made a whole arc of just being a guy that's struggling with this demon inside of him, to now they've reached this point of harmony. I mean, he was doing like yoga on a cliff face in She-Hulk, right? He's like kind of become, so now if to do another movie, you're going to have to tear him back down in a creative way.
And if, again, we've seen the advents of, like, we have the leader, we have She-Hulk, we have his son Scar, we have potentially the Red Hulk, the Abominations out there. Like, they have set up a lot of Hulk players in the world, right? But I think we've always said, you know, all the stuff, literally almost everything we've ever seen, minus Secret Invasion, which will probably be swept under the rug again, is set in America. So how are other countries dealing with literally every superhero in the world being in the U.S.? And like, how do they try to catch up, right, would be my thing. And obviously the Hulk's blood created Captain America. You know, that's how they did it. Or Captain America's blood created the Hulk the other way from the Incredible Hulk. So like, you know, how do other countries play catch up, make their own super soldiers? And I could see a World War Hulk being those other countries doing that, and not doing it the right way, I guess. To cause some problems. I'd love to see that. I would love to see this movie. It doesn't need to be the comic book version, right? They can take the title. We've already gotten the World Breaker Hulk look from Thor Ragnarok. He's not going to come back to Earth and try to take it over and take revenge on the Illuminati. So if it's World War Hulk, is like all the countries are making Hulks / super soldiers, and he's got to step up and do something, sign me up. Let's see that version of it along the way. Moving on, I think we talked about Hulk being a big part of Avengers 5, but we've got some news on Avengers 5 that director Sean Levy from upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine is in talks to direct film again. We didn't even know he was in talks the first time, Mike, is what happened. He apparently was offered the movie, but passed a while ago, but because of the delays in the Avengers 5 movies and everything kind of being reworked, it's given Levy an opening again to work on this movie if he wants. So he is in talks to possibly take over as a director for this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to make this sound like an insult, because Sean Levy is a very successful creative, but he does kind of seem like the safe choice director, right? You know, it seems like if you got like a summer kind of blockbuster action movie, especially maybe if there's some humor thrown there, like, put Sean Levy on the case and he will execute. It makes me think of like when for the Solo movie, they had to bring in Ron Howard. I feel like I had very similar opinions there of like, oh, they just want somebody here that they know they can get the job done. You know, best case scenario, you know, you're going to get like an 8 out of 10 movie. Worst case scenario, maybe like a 7.5 out of 10, right? You know, so I would like more bigger swings in the MCU, and maybe we're going to be talking about a slightly bigger swing in director here in a couple segments. But like, I can't be mad about this, but I'm not like super excited about it. You know?
I disagree. I think the writing has to knock it out of the park. I don't think the director matters in this situation. But I would say the only director I think who could pull off Deadpool and Wolverine, and like that movie should not exist in the MCU, right? It is R-rated. It is raunchy. It is an angry Wolverine. It brought back Hugh Jackman. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't exist. And he was able to do that. I think if you have a good writing team, they will make the movie good, and the director will bring out again the audiences. Because I was thinking about this earlier this week, and I don't think it was this, but the idea that a movie lives and dies on its directing name rather than the entire crew who puts it together is kind of that's a wrong way to think about it, because it takes an editor, it takes a director, it takes a cinematographer, it takes everyone to make a movie. So I think by saying, yeah, he's going to be the linchpin of this, I don't think so on something of this scale and this I guess scope. I was looking at Shawn Levy. I couldn't tell you right now. I don't know if you've looked this up, Mike. Other than the recent Ryan Reynolds stuff he's done, could you tell me something else he's directed? Shawn Levy's directed.
I'm literally only thinking of Ryan Reynolds stuff because he did Free Guy.
Yep.
What was that?
Adam
Time
Project.
Travel one, the Adam Project.
Yep.
There's like one other that's like kind of bubbling right on the front of my head that I feel like Ryan Reynolds wasn't involved in, but I can't. I can't think of it.
So there's I don't see any other Ryan Reynolds movies on his thing right now. He did all 3 Night at the Museum movies.
That's what they were, because we just recently watched all of them in this house. Yeah. We rewatched all the Night at the Museum movies.
He did, the Cheaper by the Dozen reboot with Steve Martin. Real Steel is his connection to Hugh Jackman. And then he took, like, after Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, he took off 7 years before Free Guy. So, and then I think he signed up for a Star Wars film too. So I don't think if he doesn't take Star Wars, he'll do this. If not, he'll do Star Wars. But they tend to not really make any Star Wars movies at Star Wars right now. So
you know what? I'm so glad you brought this up. This is absolutely wild. I can't believe I forgot about this. But the Night at the Museum movies were never really on my radar. I think I watched the first one when it came out, and that was about it. And then my wife has more nostalgia for them, so we kind of went back and we watched them. I think it's the third Night at the Museum movie. The characters are like running through London or something, and they bust into a theater, and there's a play happening on stage, and Hugh Jackman is on stage, and he's literally is Hugh Jackman because he's trying to like de-escalate the situation with Ben Stiller, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm Hugh. You might know me. I'm Hugh Jackman." Oh no, it's not Ben Stiller. It's like some sort of Egyptian that's come back to life because the Egyptian has no idea who this is. But it's actually pretty funny because he does the whole like Wolverine like claws out, clenched, bent over to try to convince this guy who he is. He's like, "No, sorry, I don't know who you are." But I was like, "Oh, this is pretty wild." It's worth it just for that one moment in the movie.
Absolutely. And I'm going to apologize. I forgot to look down at the television section of his work. He has directed 8 episodes of Stranger Things.
Oh wow!
Including like the award-winning one, Dear Billy, which is the one with the where what's her name is floating.
I'm telling you, Chris, if you just put all of his body of work in a blender and blend it up, you are sitting at a safe 8.
Yeah,
and that's not bad, and it's not an insult either. That's just weird. I'm just stating an opinion, and I feel like I don't have a spin on it. Like that's all I got. Like, we are probably going to have a good movie if he's directed.
Right. Well, and I think, and I do, and I think my point with this is saying if he can do Stranger Things and Free Guy or Adam Project, he's not. I think he's not genre siloed, if you will. Right. He can do horror and drama. He can do comedy and levity as well. So I think as long as the script is good, I think he'd do it. The last thing I'm going to say about Shawn Levy is I'm going to give him a love and a hate right here for you, Mike. The love, he directed 5 episodes of Animorphs in the late 90s. And I love Animorphs. The hate is, I don't know if you ever watched that short-lived Birds of Prey TV show from 2002.
Oh,
based on the DC comic book characters. Yeah, he did an episode of that. But I mean, works.
That
So.
to me just seems like a guy that's out there just trying to get his career started,
But
trying to get some work.
But at the same time, the script is what ruined that show, not necessarily the director. So I'm excited for this. I think it's great. Also, we're going to reiterate this movie will be grounded story with multiversal aspects. No big deal. Now, this is the other rumor that came out for this week. Sources are saying that this project could have more than 60 MCU characters. And I think people are thinking Avengers 5 is one movie when they're saying the next Avengers movies will have over 60 characters. I don't think the next one will have 60 characters. Do you? The King Dynasty one?
We were thinking that that would probably be reserved for Secret Wars,
Yeah.
I'm really curious what we're looking at here with Avengers 5 and Avengers 6, and I'm curious if it's going to be structured a little bit more like Infinity War and Endgame, a part 1 and a part 2, but not necessarily, nothing happening in between the two of them, just like the last ones. I mean, it worked, right? It worked with the last 2 set of movies. So, do you try that again? If there's multiversal aspects, I'm just trying to think, like, what does that mean? Just because aspects seems like such a word, like, oh, we've lightly seasoned this movie with multiversal stuff. And, like, the multiverse is such a compounding, gigantic thing happening. So it makes me wonder if maybe some sort of rift has opened and the antagonist has slipped over from another universe, right? And as they're fighting that person, they start to learn of the more of the problems that are bubbling up, and that will lead you into your Secret Wars.
I know we're back to where they might have Kang again, and they recast him. So I think the aspects will be like, we have a Kang that they're fighting, and then we're going to learn about the other ones for Secret Wars. Like, like we're going, like you mentioned, we're going to seed the seeds. We're going to set it up. Secret Wars. I mean, we'll just get into it. The next part of this is Secret Wars, and Secret Wars will probably be a multi-part film, and that's fine with me. If they needed 2 movies to tell the story because there's so many characters, Mike, I'm fine with that. Right? Like that is cool to tell a good story. But I think it's going to be very multiversal in Secret Wars. Like maybe the end of 5, Act 3, like, okay, we've beaten the big bad, but oh wait, we've doomed the Earth. It's going to crash or whatever. We'll talk about some of these things Secret Wars will borrow from. But like, I think that's what they're talking about. Like Secret Wars 1, 2, whatever it's going to be, is going to be the big multiversal culmination and finale, all within 2 movies, if you will.
Yeah, like, are we talking about, incursions here?
Yeah.
What exactly is going to be happening? Are we just going to, is Kang going to be defeated in Avengers 5 and Secret Wars is going to be, more battle world oriented?
So, you just watched Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It ended with the threat of incursions, not with the threat of Kang, right? So, like, there is the idea, like, the worlds are collapsing because they're colliding. Or the rumor, we've heard from the rumors for Deadpool, like, there's like totems in the universe, like we talked about Spider-Man being a totem, and if like some character in that universe dies, the universe fades away. They've all taken this from comic books, so the idea of Secret Wars is going to borrow from 3 books. Number 1, the more recently Avengers Assemble story by Jason Aaron, where reality was rewritten to get rid of the main universe 616 Avengers in the comics, but they are pursued through multiverse and meet variations on themselves, including like the 1 billion BC universe 1 billion BC Avengers and stuff like that. They could also borrow from Avengers Forever, which is character Rick Jones, who's normally a Hulk character, assembles different Avengers from different times to fend off an attack from Immortus, who is a Kang variant. And lastly, as you mentioned, Time Runs Out, which is Jonathan Hickman's Avengers versus the Illuminati. The Illuminati are destroying worlds so they don't have incursions with their world, which causes a friction with the Avengers at the end of the day.
So there is this strategic advantage that they could have if a Secret Wars movie was split into 2 parts, right? So we're talking about Avengers 5 and then Avengers like 6, 7, right?
Yeah.
And maybe those are only like 1 year apart, right?
Yeah.
There's an advantage that you have there is if you introduce a lot of your multiversal variants, which we're already familiar with the term variant now, in that 6th movie, right? you can market test them. You put them out there in the world. You see what characters the audience responds to the most. Who do they like? Who do they want to keep around? You kill off all the ones that people didn't like, and you keep the ones around that you like, and you fold them into your new MCU that's rebooted. You know, you can't do that if you introduce them all in one movie and then kill them all at the very end, or you know, not kill
leave a
them,
door,
but make them non-existent or something like that. So that is one, and we do know that Marvel does do kind of like their own version of market testing to decide like kind of like their next projects and stuff like that. So that's one unlikely advantage of splitting it into two films.
Right. And I think all these comic book series I've read, and they're obviously very comic book tropey. You have to adapt them to the things. Again, the Avengers Endgame and Infinity War borrow from a series called Infinity, written by Jonathan Hickman, which is the precursor to Time Runs Out Here. So they could lean into that if they wanted to. I'm excited either way. But I do love the idea of incursions, and I'm glad you rewatched Doctor Strange to remind me that those do exist and those should be. Literally, something that you can't predict and you can't control would be something crazy to think of the Avengers trying to stop, right? Like, how do we use our minds? How do we use our brawn? It's not working, and it all ends in Battle World somehow. So, highly recommend those. But X-Men, let's get into the X-Men. This is going to be a key factor when the MCU probably relaunches post Secret Wars, no matter when it is. But Jordan Peele has recently met with Marvel about this movie. This movie was brought up specifically the X-Men, because they are looking for somebody high profile to kick this off, right? And everyone's like, is he going to write it or direct it? It's mostly our director, because we already have a writer in the works.
Well, also, too, Jordan Peele doesn't strike me as the type of director that doesn't have creative input on the story.
Yep.
I mean, this is like a weird kind of cross that he, in his career, that he kind of has to make the decision, right? Because to me, at least personally, Jordan Peele, the name, kind of sits up there with these like Edgar Wrights, these, you know, maybe to a lesser extent than like a Christopher Nolan. You know, these are like name directors, where no matter what they make, I'm going to go watch it because I don't even need to see a trailer. I know it'll be good on some level. You know, it might not be better than some previous work of theirs, but it'll be good. Like, I wasn't the biggest, you know, fan of Last Night in Soho from Wright, but I still had a good time, and I felt like it was worth my admission. So there's a path where that is his career, where Jordan Peele could just keep making these like very intriguing, creative movies, right? But also, I wouldn't blame him if he went the big cash cow.
I can do one X-Men movie, right? Like, I'll do one and see how it works for him.
Yeah, like, are you kidding me? Like, and this is the kind of step that you need to do, right? You can't fumble the ball on rebooting the X-Men. Like, this is a franchise that is going to go. We've already seen it go for more than a decade. They need it to do the same because all of these characters that they've already built in the MCU, they're starting to fray and wither a little bit. Audience interest is starting to, you know, dwindle. Not like a ton. It's not a catastrophe, but, you know, they need something new. And can you imagine an X-Men poster with directed by Jordan Peele right under the logo? I mean, come on, that would be huge for Marvel.
I'm on the other. I think it'll bring a lot of people. I don't care for Jordan Peele's movies. Don't entice me, but I don't care for horror films, and that's what he leans into recently. So it's not to say that he doesn't do a good job. I just don't lean into horror films. But I do think, as you said, he would have. You know, you want to swing. You want someone who's going to come in and put their stamp on something, right? Like you mentioned, Sam Raimi put his stamp on Doctor Strange, right? You know it's a Raimi film. If you want him to come in and do this, I think Jordan Peele would be the person to come in with an idea, something he wants to do, a story. The story is being written, but he wants to tell it take that story and tell it his way. He's got to be on board with that. I think he'd do a fantastic job. And I think I disagree. I wouldn't say I disagree. I think my thought process is not like the audience waiting current Marvel movies. Have you seen how popular X-Men 97's been, Mike? You can't throw away that X-Men goodwill that they just built back up for you this year. If you ruin X-Men on your next go, like there is no recovering from that, I guess, right? You're probably going to end up with an Eternals on your hands where you have a lot of characters and nowhere to put them because you're kind of gun shy at the end of the day. So
Well, we both agree the stakes have never
oh, absolutely.
higher.
I think I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think he's a bad choice. I don't think seeing his name would make me want to do it, but I would love to see what he would do with it though. And at the end of the day, so I would love to do that. So I think he could bring something to the table, absolutely. And even if he doesn't do it, maybe something else will come out. What if he does Midnight Suns instead, like that kind of horror film, like
maybe. So
lean into what he does, and he's also doing a video game with Hideo Kojima, right? I believe. So we can see what he's doing next. But absolutely, I think X-Men's got knocked it out of the park, and we both agree to that. Next thing is someone a relatively I wouldn't say positive. What's this? The ratio of successes is higher than most people. Scooper has said for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Phase 7. If you want to know what it's going to be about, likely look to the stars, specifically Eternals Volume 3, which is a comic book series. So
first of all, I have to decode just Phase 7.
Yeah.
I can't believe that we're already at the point where we're dropping a 7. That's like what
it took. It took
like
me a while to do the math on that. Even I was like, oh, are we on 6?
I thought we were still in Phase 4, but I forgot that ended after Wakanda Forever. So we're currently in 5, and then we're not even on to the next one. It's crazy that we're already at that digit already.
Yeah, exactly. And to me the next thing that kind of, it doesn't give me whiplash, but it's like someone saying look to Eternals for the next phase, and Eternals Volume 3. I actually own every book in the series physically. Because it was written by Neil Gaiman as the writer of this series, and it's kind of an interesting tell of that people on Earth, I think maybe the Eternals, it might have been other people, have forgotten their memories, and they're kind of recovering those memories for like 500,000 years. So I don't know what part of this 12-issue story to pull out of it, but I mean that's a wild thing to be throwing out there.
I mean, to me that just sounds like there's going to be some sort of mechanism that they build into this world to kind of reboot it, right? That's just what it seems like to me.
It sounds like maybe an awakening of that universe, I guess, right? Like, hey, we are all mixed match collaborations of other universes coming to that realization.
I mean, I'm trying to remember, because I'm just trying to think of live action adaptations of kind of like reboots or like kind of permanent mashups in a way. And I just keep thinking of that Arrowverse crossover.
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah. But the thing is, I really didn't watch those seasons all that much, so I don't really know how it continued on after that. But that ended with all of the, characters and actors in the same world. And I believe all of the leads retained their memories of everything that they've been through, but just everyone else, like all of what the normal people in that world, just kind of like, oh, it's just always been like this. This has always been our world. So, I mean, you kind of have to do that when you're kind of bringing in like actors and all of these different TV shows that you've built out separately. Maybe something like that. Yeah. Is what's happening. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. It's just a weird. I mean, we're very early on. Obviously, we're in Phase 5. Phase 6 doesn't end until the end of next year. So, or Phase 6 doesn't start till the end of next year after Fantastic Four, or maybe with Fantastic Four. I don't know. But like, it's just a weird. It's not weird. It's just interesting. It's an interesting series to call out in the middle of it. So I'm gonna have to go dust off those issues and read and see if it brings up anything. I'm like, oh, this would be a great thing to go. But if anyone sees that out in the world, you can go grab a collection of Eternals Volume 3 while you can. All right, I've been waiting to talk to you about it. We have not talked about this at all, people. But Venom: The Last Dance got its first trailer earlier this week, and we haven't said a word to each other about this. And I'm excited to talk to you about it because you did exactly what I wanted you to do, Mike. You put the Venom horse on our thumbnail because I'm like, this has got to be the wildest thing I've never dreamed of coming out of a Venom movie, is that they venomized a horse. But
I mean, the trailer gets me excited because it just seems so wacky and just out of pocket and just a fun time with Goo and Tom Hardy. But I kind of thought that maybe it would improve with the sequel. So I would be considered crazy. What's the definition they always say? The definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Yeah.
So I should not be expecting different results, but this does give me the feeling that they're leaning into the weirdness of the world a little bit more than usual.
It seems to be going into a little more abstract that I thought it would. Now I think at the end of the day it's going to come down to Goo versus Goo, because we see what looks like to be other colored symbiotes, or at least symbiotes colored in different lights, which are kind of like, what was that separation anxiety video game we talked about last time, talking about the different colors symbiotes kind of maybe bonding with I would say Baron Mordo, but he's not Baron Mordo. Chiwetel, I can't pronounce his name, whatever his name is in this, but there's that. But I didn't expect them to throw down a xenophage, an alien that eats symbiotes, fighting them in this movie. I thought it would be another literal symbiote rather than a xenophage at the top of this. So I was surprised by that. The horses. I was going to tell you, Mike, we get to see Dr. Kirk Connors. Did you notice that in this?
No,
movie?
I didn't.
In this, there is a dude with long hair in a van. About 2 minutes into the trailer or so, maybe closer to the end. Like he's got like a little guitar, like a little van he's playing. And that is Rhys Ifans, who played Dr. Kirk Connors in The Amazing Spider-Man. And obviously this is not set in that universe, but if it is, or if it is, a Sony / Spider-Man parallel universe, literally it could be this version's Kirk Connors he runs into out in the wild, like not doing science stuff. Like maybe he gave up on science. I don't know. It seems like they're really pulling, like you mentioned, pulling things out of thin air just to make it wild on this journey here. And then also the other thing, I've seen this so much, and it's boring me to death. It is the bar scene. Did you notice that? That's the same dude from the bar as the end of No Way Home. And they're like,
the guy from Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso.
Yeah, they're like, and the lady in this is also from Ted Lasso, I think. The scientist lady in this one, she's in there briefly. Is it Juno? Not Juno Temple? Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I think that is her. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's doing this, but they're like, oh well, is Sony retconning Marvel's Spider-Man No Way Home scene? And I'm going to say no, because obviously he went from one bar, probably went right back to the other bar he was at in his universe, and was like, it's the same dude, just a different universe, right? Like, I don't think Marvel needs to have the black symbiote, and if Sony retcons it in Venom: The Last Dance, people are going to riot. They're just going to riot, Mike. There's no way to do it. So if they do that early on in this movie, it's going to just absolutely be destroyed in reviews and everywhere else. But overall, I don't know what to expect. It does seem like this is the last movie. Like, it seems like there's some pretty somber moments in here. Like, Venom or Eddie are both going to die at the end of this movie, Mike.
Yeah, I'm curious what the plan is for, Sony after this, right? Do they just keep resurrecting just bizarre one-off Spider-Man characters just till the end of time? It seemed like Venom was the most successful attempt that they had out of it, and now it's coming to an end. So,
well, there's still Kraven. Lord knows we get Kraven later this year.
Yeah, all eyes on Kraven, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think Sony has a plan other than, hey, Marvel, can you make us money with by doing Spider-Man for us? Because
it seems like a company that operates quarter by quarter, right? Yeah. We just want to make sure the next quarter is better than the last one. We're not going to think about it too much.
Yeah, we've not heard anything about a Morbius 2, thankfully. Silver and Black was canceled. They're not doing the Spider Society show at Amazon anymore. But they are moving forward with Noir with Nicolas Cage. So literally crapshoot. But this one I think was also written by Tom Hardy and Kelly Marcel, Kelly Marcel wrote the script from a story from her and Hardy, and I think she is also filming it. So seems to be a pretty tight crew here. I'm gonna watch it in theaters, but like at the same time, I'm not gonna really go in and expect I'm not expecting top tier quality cinema out of this.
Yeah.
So.
When's this one come out again? I've already forgotten.
October. They all come out in October. Let's see here. It doesn't even include. Yes, it just says October in the description here. That's all I have. Yeah. Is there any other animals you'd want to see venomized? After watching the Horse, I'm like, ooh, what other animals can we venomize in this universe?
Yeah, it seems to be the only way to get me excited. Maybe this is how Kraven gets his powers. That lion that...
Oh, yeah. It's magic blood, though.
Or,
we saw the magic blood already in the trailer. They're not going to re-edit that.
Yeah, maybe that's venomized blood. Maybe that's where...
Yeah, there have been... Spider-Man 2 had Kraven and Venom in it. I was hoping for a venomized Kraven. I don't know. The only other thing is, there's a scene where Tom Hardy's underwater and being like shot by those dudes, the military dudes. So maybe like a venomized fish or shark would be interesting to watch. But that would be
or a gator, maybe.
Yeah, yes, a gator with an accent too. Very very southern of you. But check out that trailer in our show notes. Moving on, Mike. I've not had a chance to watch The Acolyte yet this week with everything kind of going on. Have you watched it yet? The Star Wars?
Yeah, checked it out last night.
Okay, so we'll probably talk about it on our next one because we'll have 4 of the 8 episodes under our belt, or 4, at least half of them. But it is now the most watched Disney Plus premiere of 2024 with 4.8 million views in 5 days, and X-Men was just 4 million, the X-Men 97, and it's got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, comparable to Andor in terms of scores. So
yeah, I feel like the only news I've been seeing about this show is the review bombing that's been happening. I didn't really look into it. I didn't want to waste my time trying to figure out what counterculture doesn't like something that's happening in this show.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about after watching 2 episodes of this show is there's nothing in these 2 episodes so far to come to a definitive opinion either way.
Yeah.
I if I had to criticize it in any way, I would just say like, oh, I feel like the show hasn't quite gotten on the road just yet, but I don't know how anyone could draw huge praise or huge negativity just from the sample of these 2 episodes that we've gotten so far. So if you're somebody that's motivated by reviews in any way,
well,
I mean,
I
wouldn't really know what to tell you.
Yeah, the 93%, I think, is the first 4 episodes, I think, where the critics got to review the first 4. But I would also say, what you mentioned is the same way I felt about when really watching Andor. Like, it took 3 episodes to get that show going, if you remember. Like, first 2 were like, yeah, okay, not bad. But the third was like, all right, we're off. So I'm excited to see, if this is getting the same critic reviews after 4 episodes that Andor did, we could do that. But I would say on the other side, the negative reviews are literally brand new accounts with literally the same content over and over again. It's pretty sad to kind of see that on there, to do that. You'd think they'd have some sort of system to work on that, like, hey, this is the same content copied and pasted over and over again. But
yeah. Isn't this what AI is supposed to be doing? Can't AI recognize just very obvious, like, oh, this account was just made, the quality of the review is just low. It's like 1 sentence, like
right. Just... Yeah. Well, exactly. It's so many days old, and this is what you came here and reviewed, and it's the same thing somebody else posted, 2 minutes ago on another account. So, but I'm excited to watch it. I just haven't had time to sit down and give it the full attention it works. So, we'll probably talk more about it here in 2 weeks. Mike, I wasn't going to include this news here, but this is true to our title of our show, the Superhero Slate, and the slate for Superman the movie has been revealed, and it looks to be, I don't know if this is like someone's collection that they have that they're keeping, like a personal collection, or like a museum, or like where this is, but this is the slate for the Superman movie with James Gunn.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the decorative artistic element is on the bottom of it. Like, It seems to be abstract at first, but then it makes me think, oh, is this like a crop of maybe like some visual development for the movie? Like,
it's a mirror,
sort of like,
if you look at it.
Like is it some like Kryptonian architecture and like the back? I don't really know what it is anyway, but it's colorful.
Yeah, it's got, again, obviously the big thing is the S right down the middle. I don't know, like I thought all slates had that digital timer on them, like instead of the dry erase feature these days. So it's interesting to see like a literally a clapboard, if you will, of this nature that doesn't have the digital screen on it.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe this is like a more of a vanity slate, if you will.
The inaugural one, they use it for the first and the last kind of.
Yeah, something like that, like the big scissors when you cut open a new building or something.
Yeah, but yeah, you get the big Kingdom Come inspired logo. You see the red, blue, and black to lean into it. Like I said, the design is essentially a mirror left and right if you cut it down the middle, other than the Superman logo. So that might give to the duality, Mike, that we've talked about, there being like an Ultraman, a clone of Superman he has to fight in this universe. Maybe that's what it's leaning into. I don't know either, but I thought it was cool because obviously that is our show is called Superhero Slate, and we had a slate to talk about for the first time, I think, in 10 years of doing the show. So check that out. And lastly, we're going to talk about the trailer release for the upcoming horror film Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez, who's done was it Don't Breathe and Evil Dead 2013. This movie is set between Alien and Aliens, Mike. So this is an in between of the first two movies, and boy, does it lean into homaging those first two films quite a bit.
Yeah, I watched this trailer and it felt like, oh, this is the equivalent of like a next gen update for a video game. You know, we know Dead Space, the game, is heavily inspired by the Alien movie franchise, and Dead Space did this very thing where they had like a next gen re-release of the original game. So like the trailer, the way the Alien logo is revealed kind of like bit by bit at the very end. It's the content seems to be similar, of people stuck on a ship, and then the only thing we get to see are the little what do they call like the face huggers, that's right. We just get super, super quick glimpses of the actual xenomorph. And then I think they showed one actor who was like very stoic and kind of computery. And I bet like, oh, that's probably the android of the crew.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this looks cool. Right,
yeah.
The one thing we do know about it was originally supposed to be like a Hulu movie, and then it got promoted to the big screen. So I'm expecting a little bit of a smaller story, but some of the visuals looked really cool too. There were some cool exterior shots of like the ship kind of going through like, you know, debris and space that looked pretty polished. So I wonder if maybe the move from small screen to big screen, that had some time to polish some stuff. I don't know.
I actually think you're confusing. There's an Alien TV series coming to Hulu still. I think Covenant was made by Fox to be a movie only.
You mean Romulus?
Or Romulus? Sorry, Romulus. Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the other one. So I think Romulus is made to be a movie. I don't think it was the Hulu. I think the Hulu thing's a different one. Still coming. I'll have to pull it up. But what I like, again, there's the blood, there's the horror, there's, you know, there are a lot of scenes you see, like the pulse rifles. You got to see the interior of the ships and stuff like that. But I think this one is like they go up to a ship and find a ship that is up there, and it might be tied into, what was it, Alien Covenant? The robot David's put a lot of those samples of aliens and face huggers in like little capsules. So what if they're like on this ship, and that's where they find them years later, decades later, because it's, you know, decades after that, and then kind of unleash them, because it looks like one of them came out of like a little goo pod at one point rather than like an egg. Like maybe they've been incubated there. So I expect to see some twists and turns in this. Obviously, it's got the R-rated. I love the it looked like a light. Someone was shining through their chest before that chest burster burst out of them.
Oh,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
that was cool.
So I really looking forward to them leaning into the body horror that is Aliens. And there's one scene at the end you got to see. Literally, I think it's when the trailer goes silent. The main character, she's floating towards green like goo in space and zero gravity, and that's like the alien blood, like the acid blood. So like, could you imagine the horror of being in zero gravity, floating towards the alien blood, like that would eat you alive? So I'm like, they're gonna get creative with this. I really enjoyed it. It's so much I even went and like watched a breakdown video afterwards. I'm like, tell me more about Aliens, like, because I've seen the movies, but I don't live in the Alien universe. So I'm like, tell me more about this. Like, I want to know more about how this fits in here. So let's go out August 16th, but I'm excited to check that out. This late summer, I guess, when it comes out. Mike, that's the episode this week. Anything else before we sign off for 2 weeks?
No, I mean, I'm looking forward to you coming out to visit me, Chris. Hopefully our loyal listeners will be happy that we will be recharging at a heavily IP-based theme park.
Yes.
We'll come back in 2 weeks and let you know what our adventure was like.
Yes, I'm excited for that. But if people want to know what you're up to in the meantime, where can they find you at?
Yeah, they can find my web comics at liferewardsrisk.com and pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or Video Game Systems, the same name. If people want to know more about the show, what we're doing, where they can come back in 2 weeks, find all our good stuff, or listen to it while we're gone, where can they get that content?
As always, you just got to visit superheroslate.com. That's the best place to find all the avenues we host our show and to get our show notes. So if you want to check out any of these trailers that we talked about today, we got that in our show notes. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to find podcasts like our own. You can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. Let us know, what did you think about that Venom trailer? What did you think about that Alien trailer? And we love our super fans. If you want to be a super fan of this show, it's so easy. All you have to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here almost every week, folks.
That's
See
right.
you in 2.